The High Fire Podcast is your go-to for straight talk on the steam and boiler industry. Get knowledge you can use, stuff that matters, like tech, safety, industry trends, and more. Whether you're an engineer, a tech, or a plant manager, we've got the info that matters to you from steam industry experts. Tune in and stay fired up.
Welcome to Ware's High Fire Podcast, and we're excited that you are here. Now, today we're actually diving into a few of unexpected places where steam will show up in the modern world. Now, steam powers America, but it's also the reason your beer's cold, your hospital's warm, and your laundry at the prison gets done. Now, before we get started though, I always like a good dad joke. So I'm gonna go with the first dad joke, and it is, why did the yoga instructor get kicked out of the gym? Nothing.
No, but
He kept stretching the truth. Oof, that was bad. All right, and we're getting ready to get rolling here, but we got some more dad jokes, I'm sure. Gerald, you got one at all?
I do.
Yeah.
What is the shark's favorite saying?
Come
Man overboard.
Oh, did you look that one up?
That's a good one.
Alex?
I'll throw one. I don't know how much of a dad joke it is, but what do you call a lazy baby kangaroo?
A couch potato.
Oh, Alex.
You could make that up.
Do you have one?
I do not have a dad
You don't
joke.
have a dad joke?
No.
We need one of mine.
You want your dad joke? You guys know it?
Yeah, I think there's one right here.
Maybe. All right, for all you hunters, why did the deer bring a pencil to the blind? Because he wanted to draw a crowd.
Good. Wow. We were good ones. Just do this all day. Well, we're looking forward to this episode, and we're going to start first with Alex. Alex, craft brewing is something that steam is used in, and it's such a passionate topic of all of ours that we love steam, but man, it powers the world. And
So I thought they were talking about the brewing.
that's the brewing part. Yeah.
That powers lots of things.
Lots of things. Bad things too.
So, when you think about brewing beer, the basic premise is you're going to take your grains, you're going to mix them with water and mash them, move it on, and try to separate out the sugars from it because we really want that. You're going to go ahead and boil that in with your hops, take it to your fermenter, and then go ahead and from there you can cool it off and package it, send it out. So heat is needed there, right? And it's not just that. I mean, once you're done cooking, you've also got to clean that in place. So, for anybody out there, if you hear CIP, clean in place, you don't want to have to disassemble everything. So, I mean, it's a really good agent to help clean as well. Mm-hmm. But consistency is so key in making sure that the beer is always done right the same way. We actually had a brewer here in Kentucky that told us, they said the most important part of their process when they were getting started wasn't their recipe. I mean, that can have some variation, be fine. It was actually selecting their steam boiler because their process requires that their beer be kept within 1 to 2 degrees through the process. So they've got to hold that temperature. It's got to be right. And if you don't, then you risk burning the whole batch. So that was important to them. We had another customer out in the Midwest. They actually, that first customer, I think they've had their boiler for 6 years or so and it's been going fine. But another customer out in the Midwest, they had their lines freeze up. It wasn't properly winterized. Sadly, it froze. And as a stopgap measure, they were like, hey, we're going to use propane and burn it here and try to warm up this fat. They scorched the entire batch. Whole thing was lost. I think it was like $8,000 in production that was just gone.
Yeah.
So after that, they doubled down. They were going to go ahead and winterize this, and they did. And they learned a valuable lesson. But, when it comes to making something like craft beer, something that's that sensitive to temperature as you go through, you've got to have quality and you've got to have consistency. And steam provides that. So you're able to get a true crafted, result that is kept consistent throughout. And that's what you get. If you're drinking beer, your steam's helping you get there.
Awesome. Well, we'll move to the maybe some food processing. I know many people actually think beer is a food. So I guess it's
Technically.
liquid syrup. But Gerald, what about from a food processing standpoint, kind of the steam behind the scenes here?
Well, there's a lot of different things. One that I thought was interesting was cheese in and of itself. It's pretty scientific on how that process works.
Mm-hmm.
from separating the curd from the whey, using the rennet in order to coagulate and do different things.
Wow, big words from Gerald today.
Right?
What is rennet? Do you know?
It's the thing that does the coagulation. Yeah, right. But also steam is used in those processes to do the heating, to do the pasteurization. You got to get to a certain temperature before it's pasteurized. And then so that it can flow through some processes. When it's out in a food plant, if you don't keep it heated up, it might get stuck in piping and things like that in what you're making. If you're making a melted nacho cheese or something of that nature.
Right.
And also, you can use it for the humidification, because cheeses are different based on aging and humidity and different things like that, and the different ingredients. So it's a pretty complex art and science, and steam's involved in all the forms of heating, whether it be like I said, the pasteurization or just cooking in and of itself. So
Right. And there's some sanitizing of the lines, right?
yeah, same thing like Alex had said, they use clean in place processes as well to make sure that after they finish a batch, they come back through with the steam. It's a lot easier to flow the steam through. It travels a lot faster versus trying to shove a lot of hot water through a system.
Yeah.
A lot of hot water is used, and often steam is what's heating up that hot water as well. So.
Yeah. What happened in that frozen meal facility?
There was an incident where they had multiple boilers. Unfortunately, they had them set up properly where one would come on if the other wasn't in place, and it was already warm, ready to roll. And a lot of times in food processes, just like or beer or whatever, if you don't continue the process the way it was designed to go, you often will lose out that whole batch. So having a good backup system in place and the heat ready to flow is critical.
And steaming food is not flashy, but it is absolutely critical, of course. Very critical. Okay, well, moving from beer to food, a good segue. Maybe from beer, we should have went straight to the correctional facility.
Yeah, tough segue. Out of extruding cheese puffs to, I cannot, there's no correlation I can make to
I
that.
don't have that. So for
No.
steam behind the bars, let's just say
Steam
Yeah, different
from the bars, or it's not going to connect.
different bar.
Yeah, we looked into this, and I don't think steam is what people think of when they think of being incarcerated or our correctional facilities, but steam is very much at the heart of running, our prisons. I mean, if you think about it, we have the same things you would have, honestly, in a hotel. It's like a hotel with a few more rules. But you've got heat, you've got hot water, kitchen operations, laundry, probably sanitation in there as well, because there's also medical facilities, in prison. So you've got the same things that hospitals would have from the, autoclaves and sanitizing different things like that. But it's 24/7, very tight controls and security around the boiler room. So a lot of our prisons are old, so the infrastructure around them is old. That includes the boiler room. And honestly, downtime is not a good thing. I think probably, having the hot water system go down at the Hilton, when you have a room or a hotel full of guests is one thing. Having the hot water system go down, in the prison in the middle of winter creates a pretty tough situation, for everybody, pretty tense. So there was one, story we came across in Georgia where they had a crack in the main steam line, like 1,500 inmates, and no hot water, no showers, no laundry for days. And, a lot of our prisons, it's already a pretty tense living environment. And then you add that in the dead of winter. So it can also turn into a security issue and stuff. So just after that, state did a whole steam system redundancy project so that didn't happen again. That's probably a good call.
Yeah.
We also got the story where there's a boiler tech in the prison, and often they have to work with armed escorts because you're running the steam line down. It's through the whole facility. And if you don't believe me, just watch The Rock, because Sean Connery kept running by leaky steam pipes in prison. So apparently that's a thing. But I thought about that. I was like, oh yeah, there's that Sean Connery deal.
Yeah.
One contractor was saying it's the only job where they've been looking at like a sight glass with an armed escort with a shotgun behind him. But there's probably certain places in the world we could go and they could find that as well. But it's not something you think about with prisons, but it is central. It's central to the operation, and things can get uncomfortable and tough without steam in any place, but for sure in the prison, they need that system to run.
Yeah. Alex, you in the rental business, you've had a few laundry
Absolutely.
prison.
We actually had a jail down in Southern Ohio that called me on a Friday evening, and it was after 9:00, and they said, "Hey, we've been fighting our boiler all day, and if we can't get a temporary unit out here, I've got to find some place to send over 700 inmates at midnight tonight." So they had a very tight window. Luckily, they were pretty close. We were able to get them a rental, got them back online, right there at the wire,
Right.
and they were okay. But with them, it's kind of like hospitals. They don't get to just shut down and comp rooms like a hotel.
Yeah.
They've got to find some place to move them, no matter what time of day.
Yeah.
And last I checked, we're not exactly sitting with a whole lot of open prison space, so it really puts some stress on.
Yeah. Especially in the Midwest when you got the cold that hits, you're still in the winter, you better get some heat.
You better get some heat. And hot water, laundry, and all that stuff. That's just basic function that has to work.
Yeah. That's in our country, obviously, we have the hot water and everything for prison, but probably in other countries, it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Definitely want to be humane. Okay, well, in those prisons, there was linens. Obviously, they have to be done, but let me maybe segue into commercial laundry. Alex, what do you get with commercial laundry?
So steam's not just, it cleans, a lot of things and it heats, but it's used for sanitation, for presses, and it powers these big laundry systems all across the country. A lot of people, when they think steam with laundry, they just think of dry cleaners, and yes, but there's also just industrial sized people. A lot of times, actually, we've seen a lot of hospitals have divested their own cleaning process, and now they just outsource that to commercial cleaners who pick it up every day, take it off, clean it, and bring it back. And we actually had a hospital, there was a linen cleaning company for hotels and hospitals down in Florida. And they ended up, one day their boiler tripped off right before quitting time on a Friday. The weekend's usually a really busy time for them. Luckily for them, they had a backup facility. They had a high efficiency steam boiler there. They were able to reroute their laundry over to that facility, get it all taken care of and delivered so that their customers didn't feel it. They never felt the pain. And they said that day, steam saved their reputation. If they didn't have that access, they'd be in real trouble. And so having redundancy and being able to have that is a big deal. But we've also, you think about a typical national commercial uniform service. They're going to usually process about 12 tons of laundry a day. That's what they're going through. So all those nice pressed collars and, the clean, crisp, lines that you have and being wrinkle free, presentation matters, but more importantly, having clean and pressed uniforms on time for your personnel matters. If these guys don't deliver, not only are their customers going to be upset, but everything kind of suffers in the process. Guys go out looking scraggly. No one wants to let somebody come into their home if they don't look presentable. So there's a lot tied up in there. And steam is helping keep the world clean and pressed and neat and tidy and ready to go. So it has a bigger impact than a lot of people realize.
Yeah. And I go back to the commercial laundry. Actually, I remember years ago where we have some customers that are laundry places, linen places, and just the operation of the boiler, of how they chose to operate the boiler became very problematic, where they were actually bringing the boiler up too fast. And it was kind of a process throughout the entire organization, throughout the country, that they really didn't have the proper measures of how to bring the boiler up. And maybe talk about that real quick, if you would, about just, when you don't bring it up quick or don't bring it up correct and you bring it up quick, what happens?
So if you're going to bring a boiler up too fast, you're essentially thermally shocking that boiler. Just like you wouldn't take a hot pan and throw it in a cold sink full of water because you'll warp it. Same thing happens inside a boiler. If you bring it up too fast, you're going to break it. You'll break something. And when you break it, two things can happen. You can either repair it quickly if it's not that bad, or in many cases, as I find out, on the rental side, you can't repair it quickly. You've got to either, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of parts, or you're going to have to replace it entirely. So then you have to call me and pay for a rental to come out there to hold you over. I mean, we can keep people online, but if people take better care of their equipment, that's one less expense they'd have to have.
Yeah. Yeah. What actually happens in that situation where it is going too hot, too quick again?
Thermal shock.
Just thermal shock. And is that going to be like your tube sheets, your tubes?
Yeah, it can cause, you can warp your tube sheet if you do it badly enough. You can pull the tubes loose. You can cause cracks in the tubes themselves. There's all kinds of manner of things that can happen depending on how quickly it is, how violent the incident is.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you do it badly enough and you ignore the problem, you could have a serious safety incident on your hands.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, and again, as I said, it wasn't just isolated to that in one particular place. It was actually a corporations wide problem because it was the procedures were not right.
Oh yeah, easily systemic problems.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can just have those procedures in place correctly, you can save a ton of money. One, repairs, but like you said, the rental does get a little expensive as well. Definitely. Well, we'll move from the commercial laundry and maybe let's roll over into the healthcare where, steam that saves lives. How about that
Steam
segue?
that saves lives. That's pretty good. I guess I'm the institution guy. I got jails, hospitals, maybe do the zoo next or something like that.
Zeus.
For animals.
Can I say
For scratch that. If you, for anyone listening or watching doesn't know, I mean, steam has a big role to play in our hospitals. And besides just the comfort, the obvious hot water is not a luxury or convenience item in a hospital. It's a life-saving measure. Hospitals are built on safety and care, but a lot of that is around sanitation, autoclaves, all those instruments that they're using. A lot of those go back into the steam generator, which is called an autoclave, put it in under pressure, raise the temperature, kills microbials, bacteria, all that nasty stuff that would grow, on things. And obviously hospitals are super critical steam. So they have redundancy. And I think each state and maybe has some different rules for redundancy. I've heard double, for triple redundancy for hospital systems. So it's a big deal. We found an example of a surgery delayed being 30 minutes can cost up to $60,000 in hospital operations. So I know continuity in hospital operations is bad. It's probably not like Southwest or exceptions of that. Any other airline that gets behind, they can maybe figure out how to catch up. I don't think you rush through a heart surgery.
Yeah.
So keeping everything sanitized is a big deal. Keeping surgeries moving is a big deal. And with hospital where there is certainly life and death issues, the redundancy in the steam room is a big deal, which might include looking up, temporary connections for a rental boiler. I don't know how I got in there. So I'm writing down. It just seemed like common sense,
Only steam quality is super critical.
And steam quality is super
Because
critical.
if they get spots on their when they're doing their cleaning in their autoclave, if there's spots, that batch is dead.
Yeah.
It's incredible how particular they are.
And it's funny you talked about laundries. Laundry was always in the hospital, and then there's just been this move because when I was running around in outside sales, all the hospitals had laundry operations.
Yeah, it's never come to that.
No, it's kind of centralized medical laundry services and stuff like that. But that steam has got to be on hand. It's got to be clean, like you said, and it's got to be there. So pretty expensive to run a steam operation in a hospital when you have to have 2 and 3x.
Yeah.
Uptime has got to be there.
Yeah. Absolutely. I can remember, moving from hospital really, but to even to like a research place at a university where there was actually a bad accident where someone was hurt or killed actually. But it really caused the university to have steam because of all of the lab rats that they actually had. And I can remember actually your dad, I think, worked on that job. And it became a nightmare where we had to get boilers quick there to make sure that the lab rats are not going to die in the winter. Now it was a redundant thing. They had a boiler, but they needed redundancy just in case that boiler goes down, right?
Yep.
And so it's something that I know, I don't know if you remember or not, but it was in the dead of winter and had to run and get those things taken care of.
I remember him talking about that. Actually, it's kind of interesting you should bring that up because this past year we worked on a project down in the Carolinas where they had a research lab with primates, and they were using them for various testing that they had to have for basically for vaccines and diseases. And you've got years worth of research building and building upon itself. So you can't, let these hundreds and hundreds of primates that they have just pass away because they lost their main heating function. So they had to help restore that. I mean, it's critical to keep that research alive.
Yeah.
And talk about, I know we were just talking about hospitals, but you also got to think of all of the standalone surgery centers that are in the U.S. So you think of the literal steam footprint. While the size of the boiler may look different, there still has to be steam applications at all of these standalone surgery clinics or, other things like that have to have steam application. It's a big footprint.
Oh, yeah. And when you think of healthcare as a whole, I mean, that even applies to like assisted living facilities, things like that. I mean, they all have to have heat as well. So, I mean, it's a big impact.
Yeah.
Dentists.
Yeah, that's right. And again, it's why we've created the whole thank steam category, that we talk about, because people still don't understand unless you're in the business. They don't realize that, how it affects them. And so the whole thank steam thing that we came up with is just, I just wanted people to just go, hey man, if you turned your lights on today, you thank steam. If you walked on carpet, you can thank steam. I would almost said walk on water. Yeah, on our chairs. I say, no, Jesus. Thank Jesus for that.
Different steam. That's divine steam.
So,
Yeah, it kind of hit me too. All these different things that we were talking about, there's so much steam usage, but it's actually reduced once you went to the diesel engine, and now things being way more electrified. I mean, at that time, it wasn't just steam providing hot water. It was, literally turning motors and belts and things like that. So that's even reduced, and it's still a huge footprint.
Right. Yep.
Well, what we do know is steam keeps the world running.
Yep.
That's really the thing that we know.
It's not going anywhere anytime soon.
No, it's not. Well, hit subscribe, like, share those videos, and we'll see you next time on the Hot Fire Podcast.